Hi everybody, I'm Taluka from Markers and Minions, and this video is being recorded for my Facebook group called Benchmark Advanced Planning, Organization, and Tips. In the last couple of weeks, I have filtered through all of the member requests, and I think I approved around 500 people. So welcome to the group, welcome to the new school year. I have this Google Doc that I will link in the comments right now. It has a ton of information about how this group operates. It's got our 5 rules. It has ways to get in touch with me. It has a link to our collaborative drive. It has everything that you might need. It has like infographics on procedures and how to follow posts and things like that. So I'm linking that in the comments here. If you're new, please read it. I also made a short link for it. I believe it's gg.gg/group rules. Let me see. Yes. So gg.gg/group rules. Anyway, so check that out. As people are joining us, let us know, say hi, and let us know where you are in your pacing right now. If you're still in your review and routines days, or if you've jumped into a unit yet. Briefly before we begin, I have been seeing a lot of posts lately about homework with Benchmark. There is a monthly calendar that you can print off of the website. It's under the homeschool tab. And it's basically, it's got a little activity for each day of the week, and it complements the student consumable text. And in order for the students to do this homework, they need that text. And so some teachers don't like to do it because they don't want to send that home, or they'll wait till a unit has passed and then they will send it home with them that way afterwards. There's also a file that I created. It's a social and emotional file called Home Challenges. And some of the challenges I had in mind, I had the units in mind when I was writing them. So it has about 27 challenges. And like one that aligns well for Unit 1 is write a letter to the mayor. So things like that. Otherwise, there are and each one has like a little student response page. I would send one home a week, not a big deal. And then I would just try to make it match whatever we were doing. Otherwise, there's not that much in the way of homework. You can always send home like spelling practice or you know, have them do reading logs and things like that. Anyway, so I saw that being posted about quite a bit. Hello. Oh, hope you're moving quickly. So a lot of us are finishing up our routines and ready to start Unit 1. Excellent. How did review and routines days go, or how are they going? Okay, the other thing that I want to talk about before we go into our topic is the September challenge. So happy September. I've posted our new challenge. Rewind. Thank you everyone who participated in the August challenge. That's archived now. It's within the group. You can search it by typing August challenge in the group. You'll see a lot of interesting and neat photos of people's classrooms. Now the September challenge is posted in the group under the group announcements. So at the very top of the page, click on announcements, see all. There's going to be 6 of them, and then the September challenge is there. If you've got my Markers and Minions teacher planner, you can use this today to take notes on anything that we're talking about. And also, I'm going to fill out for September under the calendar. I'm going to fill out the focus of the month right here, and I'm going to put our September challenge. Now, our challenge or our theme for this month is to give more than you take. So we've got a lot of new members, so they're probably like, what? I don't have anything really that I feel like I can contribute yet. Yes, you do. Let us know just any sort of fun activity or a neat idea that you have. Doesn't even need to be benchmark related. Something that you think that other teachers might enjoy. And otherwise, you can create a resource. If some of you are in year 2 now and you're like, oh, I've got this, I can create something to share with others. You can create a resource. You can share a photo of an anchor chart that you've made to go alongside one of your R&R days or like to launch your unit. Anyway, give more than you take. Share something. And the whole goal is so that we can beef up our collaborative drive and have a ton of resources in there to start our new year. So I'm going to just write this down for my focus. So share an idea, activity, photo, or resource. Yay! And then this section here, what's inspiring you? So anytime that something is shared in our challenge or even just shared in the group that you think, oh, I want to follow this, I love this idea, you can jot it down here. New ideas, any inspiration to take with you through the month of September. And then I'm going to be working on my notes here today. Otherwise, if you don't have this planner, not a big deal, but you might still want something to take notes with. All right, so we're going to be revisiting this topic today. I initially filmed a video on small groups back in, I don't even know when, a long time ago. And the video was sort of saying, I was talking about like, this is what I'm going to try with my class. And I tried it, and I tried it for all of last year. And so now this is sort of like a revisiting, and I'm going to reflect on what I did, what worked well and what not. So we're going to be talking about the importance of small groups and our different centers, ways to structure them, ideas for centers, and then resources, what are they going to actually be doing in those centers, and then management. So having most of your class be working independently while you're pulling your group. Like what does that look like? How will that be managed? Let's see. So we're having success with our R&R days. Good. Hi, hello everybody. Okay. All right, first of all, the importance. Why do we need to have small groups and centers? My first year of Benchmark, I share this quite often, I had a 2-3 combo and a newborn, and it was survival mode. I had been on the adoption committee, so I had a pretty good understanding of the program, but I was not totally confident in my implementation right away. Now, I didn't do small groups my first year. Didn't do it very well anyway. I'm Project GLAD trained, so there is an aspect of small groups incorporated into that training, and I was doing small groups for that, but I didn't really figure out until my second year how to merge that with Benchmark small groups and how to make that work. Now in hindsight, if you're teaching a 2-3 combo, you definitely want to do small groups because that's how you're going to be able to manage everything. Now the importance of it is Benchmark really is a program that is dependent on like readers and writers workshop. It's depending on that one-on-one time where you're with students. So the structure of the program is basically you've got this whole group time where you're teaching your mini lessons. It's a small part of your day. And then your centers are where you're going to be differentiating. Now something that comes up all the time is the issue of how complex and difficult the text is, right? Is that a 10th grade reading level? Oh my God. It's tough. Anything you're using whole group is meant to be rigorous. So that's very heavily modeled, teacher guided, but you can't live in that all day long. So it's important to break off into your small groups and bring in some of those other resources that are meeting the students at their instructional level. We're still able to practice your standards and your skills. So that differentiation time is really important. Also, the purpose of, and I wrote down here, the purpose of having different like workstations, as Benchmark puts it, is so that students are engaged and practicing while you get that precious guided reading time. And guided reading, that small group guided reading is like a whole nother video. It's a whole nother day. We'll be focusing on the rest of the classroom for this video. But the goal, remember through all of this, the goal is so that they are, I don't want to say busy because it's not busy work, but they're practicing independently so that you are uninterrupted. All right, so structuring, how does that look? Now, Benchmark suggests doing a mini lesson and then breaking off in a small group, small groups. Mini lesson, small groups. Mini lesson, small groups. So every grade level has 3 like main mini lessons. Reading, writing, and word study or phonics. Now down in K and in 1, you've also got your shared reading. So your day is going to look a little bit different. You'll have like your read aloud, your shared reading, reading mini lesson, small group, writing mini lesson, small group, and back and forth. So it's ping pong. Personally, that didn't work for me. Maybe now, now that we've done it for 2 years, maybe that's something I could try to work on. But when I was first implementing small groups, what helped me to structure mine was whole group mini lessons back to back. So my 3 main ones back to back, and then breaking off into small group time. So it was, my whole block was 80 minutes, and then it was 10:40 to 11:30 whole group, 11:30 to 12 small group. So 30 minutes. The way that I structured mine was largely influenced by Daily 5 and then also Project Glad. So I had my center themes based off of Daily 5, more or less. Now the way that I placed my students was based off of my Project Glad training. So the students that were going to a center that day traveled with their team. And the teams were heterogeneous, meaning that there were a mix of academic levels and also a mix of personality and learning types. I didn't want to group them homogenously because what would end up happening is you'd have a group of lower ability students and they would need you during that time. They wouldn't be able to work independently. So I would structure it so that each of my teams, I had 4. Each of my teams had about, 6 kids, and I had, lows, medium highs, highs. I also had a leader who was my, outspoken children. We all have our outspoken children that like to tell the class what to do. So I had one of those kids in each group, and then I had a tutor. And we'll talk about this more during the management. But so anyway, they traveled in their heterogeneous team while I pulled homogeneous groups. When you're doing your guided reading, you want them to all be at the same level, right? So you're working with one level text. So I would pull, say I was working with my medium high children that day, I would pluck the medium high child out of that team, 2 from that team, whatever. And I would pull them out of their center for that day. And they didn't do that center. Some people ask, well, like, what did you have them make it up? Did you have them do it for homework? And I always try to refer back to like the main purpose. The main purpose of the center is so that they're being kept occupied, right? Because the guided reading time is so important. So if they missed that because they were getting that really important time with me, that differentiation, it wasn't a huge deal. Now, my scheduling allowed for them to have a day where they could make up what they missed. I only had 4 centers. So Monday they would go to one, Tuesday another, Wednesday another, Thursday another, and then Friday they wouldn't go to a center. They would work on catch up. So they would finish up whatever they didn't finish. Say they went to that center, but they were having an off day and they didn't get to finish their work, they had Friday. Say they skipped their center completely because they were working with me, they had Friday. Also, a personal preference is I didn't really collect the center work. Sometimes I would collect it like right around parent conference time and say like, this is an example of how your child's working classwork independently. Sometimes I would just send it home. Sometimes I would kind of check it real quickly, whole class with them. So again, I didn't put too much stock into that because the purpose was so that I could do my guided reading. So does that make sense, how they're structured heterogeneously and then my reading groups are homogeneous? Let's see. Yes, Lisa, are you doing the benchmark small books for guided reading? Yes, those level texts. Okay. Now, center ideas. So my centers are Read to Self, for independent reading workstation, as Benchmark calls it, word work, tech, and writing. Those are the independent stations. Now for Read to Self, I looked up online and I filmed a short video that I will post in this unit afterwards. By the way, this is a new thing, units in our group. If you're looking at the left-hand navigation bar, or if you're on an iPhone or a phone, it's up at the top, it goes across. There's files, photos, videos, there's units. So if you click on units, you'll see basically these lessons that I put together for our group. Centers and small groups is going to be its own lesson, and this is where I'll throw all of these resources and videos. I have a video that shows you how to access something called Managing Your Independent Reading Workstation, Managing Independent Reading, and it's on the Benchmark website. And you go to Program Support, click on that icon that says Managing, and then in there, you'll learn it'll tell you all about like how to pick the right book and the importance of building your library and the importance of independent reading and building stamina and whatnot, fluency. And then it has resources. And I found the reading log that's always referenced in the review and routines days that no one ever seems to know where it comes from. In fact, a trainer once told me like, oh, you just make it yourself. There's actually a reading log in there. So there's a list of resources there for you that you can use at your independent reading station. I think there are even like prompts and things like that you can kind of print out and leave there. Now in my class, let me pull it up. In my class, what I did was I would have in the reading station my response to reading strips. So this is a Kagan thing. So I was actually doing this even before Benchmark. But like you have the question jars, right, that Benchmark introduces in the first 15 days. Oh my God, there we go. And there are some questions basically that they can pull out of the jar and they can respond to the reading that way. I made a bunch of additional questions for fiction and nonfiction, and they're just like I would laminate these and then keep them at that center, and then students, depending on what type of text they're reading, they pull out a response strip. So this is actually a Kagan strategy called fan and pick. And then there's like a reading response sheet for my upper elementary kids. I would just have them write the prompt there and then respond to it. Primary, there's their prompt. They draw a little picture and respond that way. And then I would just print off like 100 of these and leave them at that center. That was something that they could do. Another thing was the bookmarks. Oh no, here, this is cool. So this is the lift a line. So this is another strategy that was introduced in the review and routines days. This is also on my TPT. This is a free download. Lift a line, basically they choose a line from the text that they're reading and they just respond to it. And I think in the resources that I mentioned that I found on the benchmark website, I think there are like actual sentence like starters. So that would be neat to pair with this. They draw a picture and they respond to it in some way. So that's something. And these, of course, these are like all, you want to have a bunch of options at each center so that they're practicing but also remaining engaged. I would also have students take this with them to their center and annotate the text again. So read whatever weekly text we're focusing on, mark it up, and then they would have to answer the text-dependent questions. And these are text-dependent questions that come with this series. They're a one-page PDF under the practice tab online. And so each unit has like 10 questions on this one PDF. My first year I printed that out and I had that on my wall and never referred to it again. So I put them up, I typed them up in bookmark form. And I also shortened them and made them a little bit more kid-friendly so that it could be done independently versus like up on my wall during my guided reading time. So the students would answer just the questions that pertain to that week's text. And then, of course, independent reading, right? You want them to read something from your library that they've picked that they're interested in. So, and then that is coupled with those response sheets. I always had my students do their bookmark first, and then they got their free choice reading afterwards. So that was the independent reading workstation. Give me just 1 second. And again, I called it Read to Self because I'm a Daily 5 classroom. Sorta. So we said they could do, and if you guys have more suggestions for these centers, please let me know. I'm gonna add them all together and then I'll take a picture of this afterwards and include it in our unit, and then people will have just a whole bunch of things that they can choose from. What I'm talking about today is just what I've done, but I'm sure there's a ton of other neat things that people have been doing. Question strips. And lift a line. Okay, let's see questions. Third grade, Joanne, yes. Do the kids only visit one center a day? Oh yeah, I can't believe I didn't talk about that, sorry. They visit one center a day. Now this is just for me, based on the population that I had. I didn't teach ELs last year. We cluster our students. My partner teacher got the EL population where she had to do her designated ELD time. I had a different cluster in my class, different group, different needs. So I met with one group a day for 30 minutes, which is like awesome, right? But a lot of the times that's not doable for most teachers. Most teachers want to see more than one group a day. So mine was nice, long 30 minutes, but most do 15-minute guided reading sessions. While I was reading for that 30 minutes with that leveled reader with my homogeneous group, my teams were working on their tasks for a whole 30 minutes. That 30 minutes is perfect for completing these things that I'm talking about. Sometimes they didn't finish and they had that Friday to make it up. If you're doing shorter centers or pulling, you could still do one center a day, but then just pull two different groups. You could totally do that. And then like whatever group you pull first, you work with them and then you release them back to their team, and then they get like the second 15 minutes to work on that center task while you pull your second group. That could work. So I would do them from 11:30 to 12 every day. And then, like I said, Friday was catch up. So sometimes I would have them like actually sit with their team And sometimes on Fridays, I would just say, find your own, I had flexible seating, find your own spot, catch up independently. And we'll talk more about like management and noise level in a little bit. I like how you call them teams. Yeah, thank you. It's a Project Glad thing, and I have them name their own teams also. I actually have a poster. I have it linked here. Let me find it. It's small group posters. Lots of different variations. Like the one I used, I had Monday through Friday up top, and then teams 1 through 4, and then a meet with the teacher at the bottom. So, but I have a lot of different variations, like 5 teams, 6 teams. This is free on my TPT. I would print this out and I blew it up, poster size, laminated it, and then wrote on it with wet erase markers. So for each team, they had their team name, so that was written there. That's why it's like silly stuff like Hot Cheetos. Like I didn't give them those names. Lion Thieves, whatever. And then it showed, it was a grid, it's a grid, so it shows like where the Lion Thieves go on Monday, where they go on Tuesday. And then meet with the teacher at the bottom is the individual student names that you're pulling out to work with you on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday. So that's there for you, linked in the comments. I'll also put it in the unit. How do you find having them in heterogeneous groups help so they can help each other better? Yes. So let's talk about management. Basically, the way that I have them heterogeneous is so that they can rely on one another. I have my lower performing, I hate saying that, lower students in those groups with the higher students and the medium highs because they can help each other, right? They can kind of tutor. And in my class, I focus a lot on like classroom community and positive environment. And so my students know what their reading level is. And my students that are below reading level know that they can go to those students who are reading on or above grade level as a resource. We call them, they're your tutor, they're your resource. They can help you. And so you kind of have to work with those kiddos and just make sure like, hey, like you're in this group because you are going to be a tutor and you have to be willing to help. So I usually had like one main tutor for each group, and then I also had one main leader. The leaders are your bossy kids, the ones that say like, you don't use your headphones that way, or don't forget to turn off your Chromebook, or finish your bookmark, things like that. So they were totally self-sufficient. Now, with that said, I did have my students travel together in their teams. They just took their materials with them, their clipboard, all their stuff they might need, and this traveled with them to a designated spot. Do you need to do that? You could just say, okay, your center today is word work, but you actually stay at your desk and you work on your words. Because I had them travel together and rely on one another, it did get loud, and I'm one of those teachers that's okay with that. I'm okay with talking. If it got too loud, I just said, hey, I can't hear, my students that are sitting right in front of me for guided reading. You guys have to bring it down a notch, or whatever. Or sometimes I would even go out. I would pull my guided reading group out into the hallway, which is always nice. So I was okay with that kind of level of noise. Occasionally, I would also do team points, which is a Project Glad strategy. It's an everything strategy, right? We've all done table points, team points at some point in our lives. So you can assign points that way as well. Like give a point at the end of your small group day, or have your leader in your team, whenever the leader notices that everyone's on task and doing what they should be doing, have them go get points, or have them look out for other teams kind of thing, go give points to other teams. You can just choose to build that however you want. But I feel that helps with management also. Also just being really clear with the students, saying like, you're working independently, which means that you cannot come up to me, but it also means that you need to be able to solve your problems and do so in a way that's going to be respectful of my guided reading group. So, in third grade, it works out. Were the center's choice pick one, reading response and do, or did you guide them to which one to do? So different from Daily Fives, I didn't allow my students to pick the center that they wanted to go to. I used that poster, and it was the same. You go to the same place every Monday, same place every Tuesday, same place every Wednesday. So they did not have that choice. The reading responses, these guys, they get to choose whatever they want. Where can I find Lift a Line? That is it's on my TPT. If you click on all freebies, you'll find a lot of these things that I'm talking about. Lift a Line response sheet being one of them. And then after I finish this video, I'll put it all in the unit, everything you might need. And I'll include a link in the caption to how to find this unit. Are these writing activities happening during the Read to Self Center or in the Writing Center? Read to Self. All right. Can I go to the next center? Let me see. How long are your groups? How many different groups do you have? One group a day for 30 minutes. Do kids visit different groups? Oh. So there's groups, like I think of groups as in like the reading group, and then there's like centers or stations. So I have one reading group that I work with a day. The kids go to one center a day, 4 centers throughout the week, and I have 4 reading groups throughout the week. My lows are on Monday, and then again I see my lows on Fridays. What if they don't finish work at a center? How do you have them make it up? On Friday, their catch-up day, or you can send it home for homework if you want, or you can just say, Like for me, I was like, if they didn't finish after Friday, it's okay. They got some practice during the week, and I got my guided reading time. I used your bookmarks last year, and they worked great. Yay! You're welcome, Julie. Okay, I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to go to my next center. Next center after independent reading or Read to Self is going to be word work. Let's do word work. Okay, or phonics. So you've got your spelling words for each week, your spelling pattern rather, and you want your students to be able to practice applying those patterns. Now, there's lots of different options. In the consumable text, so starting in 2nd grade, there's this page called the Word Study. It's right before the Build, Reflect, Write, and it's full of words that follow your spelling pattern. So we're not just having our kids memorize a set list of words anymore, right? We're having them learn patterns. So they're finding them, they're highlighting them, they're circling them, whatever. You can have them even pull them out, write them on the side. You can have them pull them out, make a word sort, something like that. There's this as an option. I would sometimes do this whole class on Thursdays. You'll see that in my planning templates. But that could be a center if you want. Oh, there's also in the very last page, these are vocabulary words for the week. You can have your students use some sort of reference guide to come up with a definition in a sentence, or use context clues. Also, if some districts have purchased the consumable student workbooks where it's like, like 5 or 6 questions on each page where they practice, like grammar worksheets, spelling worksheets. If your district didn't purchase that for everybody, you can access it online also. It's under the practice tab, spelling, vocabulary, grammar worksheets, something like that. Our district didn't purchase them because we purchased Benchmark a long time ago before everything was really developed, and I made pamphlets that they follow the same skills. So I would just have the set word list and the skill, and then the grammar skill or the language skill for that week, and then I made like a word sort always on the first one, and then vocabulary using some of the words. They had to use context clues to figure out what the meanings were, and then 2 grammar practice pages, so one here and then one here. If you have these, you will learn all about my family and Mrs. Rivers and Olive and Ruby because I've run out of ideas. And then the last page is to write sentences using spelling words. This is something that I would give at the beginning of a week on Monday. I would teach my spelling and grammar on Monday. I didn't wait until that drafting lesson. I would front load. I would just use this to teach it. And then this is what they worked on in their 30-minute center. Most of the kids finished it. My third graders, most of them finished it. And if not, they had Friday. So there's that. You could also do the 4 corners for vocabulary, where you teach your students to draw one of these bad boys, and they just write like the word, the part of speech, use it in a sentence, draw a quick sketch, whatever you want. You keep some dictionaries at your word work center, that kind of thing. What else? If you have any suggestions as to what you do in your word work center, let me know. Let me add these to my notes here. There's the word study page. Oh, in 2nd grade, you have something called shared reads still, right? That's kind of a continuation from K1. You've got 2 shared reads, I believe. That is for serves the same purpose as our word study. That last page that I showed you. It's going to be full of words that follow your spelling pattern. In K and 1, you have those shared reads also, my shared readings books. I don't know if the kiddos can work on that independently in the beginning. I know like there's a 1st grade teacher at my school who did that whole class for like the 1st semester and then eventually put that into a center. So use consumable text to hunt for words. Vocab, what should we call this? Vocab chart. Vocab chart. You could do the vocab 4 corners. You could do the practice pages. Or you can do those pamphlets. I made pamphlets for 1st all the way to 5th. And I'm working on getting those aligned to the national version as well. Okay, word work. Let me pause. If anyone has any kindergarten ideas, would love them. Most don't read, trying to keep them on task with doing meaningful work. Let's see. They can always respond with 1 sentence or a picture, right? You can have them do like a little comic, tell a story with pictures. That'd be cute. I make a rough outline for the sequence of events in a text, make copies for a center, cut into strips, and package it as a portable summary activity. Most of the teams were able to finish this task like a jumbled jigsaw throughout the week. That's cool. I collected their finished products and was able to post them for a bulletin board. I think you may have shared pictures of that once. That might have been you, but if you haven't, can you show us what that looks like? Joanne says, I usually see 4 groups each day, but I have not used the benchmark leveled readers, use just my own books. 1st grade. Jamie, I do flexible seating as well. Did you have a specific area in the room for each team to work in, or did they continue to have choice in where they worked? No, I had designated areas because I needed, for example, my focus wall had all the words for the week, so I wanted them to sit by the focus wall, that kind of thing. I also had, so word work was near that. I also had a long table in my classroom, and I wanted the tech center to be there because they needed a nice surface to put all of their Chromebooks close to outlets too by the cart. So I had that designated spot. My read to self, independent reading, they were on the carpet, so they could just lay out on the carpet with pillows. And that was my writing group had to have tables, so hard surface. So I had them actually at like a circle table. I missed the beginning of this. Do you do the 15-minute lessons or 15-minute small group benchmark recommend time frame? No. So you can do like your 15-minute lesson and then break off into a group. 15-minute lesson, break off into a group, which might be better for the little ones, right? Because they need to be moving around more. But I would do mine back to back. My whole group back to back, and then they break off into one center for the day. When do you read the unit text, the one you annotate, if you're reading leveled readers in groups? We would do the unit text, this one, in our whole group reading mini lesson. I also did not go right into small groups last year. Unit 1, I focused mainly on whole group and getting used to the curriculum and applying the strategies we learned from the R&R days into the annotation and all that. Once we got to, I think it was the end of Unit 1 or the beginning of Unit 2, I had them practice their centers, and I was not pulling groups at that point. So for a whole week, it was like a test run where they'd go to their center and I would just walk around and I would say, like, don't talk to me because you're supposed to be practicing not talking to me, but I'm here to talk to you if you need me, that kind of thing. So they would be at their centers and practicing like, well, what do I do if I'm stuck on a problem? Well, who's my tutor? How do I put the laptops away? Things like that. And then once we did a whole week of that, then I jumped into pulling my small groups. With the heterogeneous groups, how do you teach the difference between tutoring and helping than just letting the lower students copy? So I would say, like for example, in the word work, my lower students often needed help with this. So I would have my tutor say, always refer back to this. So the way that I teach it on Monday is the way that I want you to try to explain it to your student that's struggling. And sometimes I would say sometimes they even just need help reading the sentence. So you're allowed to read that aloud to them and say, okay, well, the love I have for my community is great. The verb is, or the noun is love. Would that be concrete or abstract? And just kind of walk them through it that way. But that is something you need to teach because otherwise they're just gonna be like, here. Right, so you wanna find a tutor who's not only, at or above grade level, but someone who's willing to help. Because not all students wanna help, right? So they'll just be like, here. Did you switch teams after some time? Did I switch teams? I had teams going for like math and other stuff too. I don't think I ever switched their ELA teams. But you could switch the teams, or you could switch, to add some variation, you can switch what they go to. So like if the Team USA gets tired of going to read to self on Mondays for all the time, you can switch up the center to add some variation there. So did you have another time where they did read to self and write to self? No. So read to self, like sometimes outside of my ELA block, I would have them read like when we got back from the library, or like when we come in from lunch, if I wasn't doing a read aloud or meditation, I could say read a book for a little bit. But beyond my read to self center during benchmark, not much. And write to self, no. I do collaborative, like shared writing first thing in the morning when the kids come in, they grab their clipboard and they come sit on the carpet square, and we do this collaborative writing called the Big Cheese. And so that's another area of the day when they get writing. And they're writing about each other, so it's a little bit more free. That's cute. One of our kinder teachers puts on a pink sparkly hat, and when she has that hat on, the kids can't interrupt her. How many kids are in a group with you? That's a good question. So my homogenous groups, when I would pull them to work at one reading level, it's just however many are at that level. So my super, super low group that I saw twice a week was small. for 4 or 5 kids. And then, like as the year progressed and my students moved up and up and up, my medium high and my highs got huge. So you have to keep restructuring too. Those are groups that you want to revisit. Like if your kids are making progress and they're not in that group anymore, you want to make sure that you're changing those. So those I did change, while the teams I wasn't as adamant about changing. Do you use center work as graded or just skills practice? Skills practice. Did you change up the options at each center weekly or keep them the same throughout the year? I kept them the same because I'm like a really lazy teacher. I'll put something on the wall and forget about it. So I would have like in these posters, that free download that I linked, I have a poster for each center, and then I laminated it, wet erase, with the intentions of putting like the must-dos and may-dos for each center. But what really ended up happening was I listed like literally all the options, like sentence strips, lift a line, bookmarks on that poster, and then didn't look at it ever again. Okay, let's go to the next center and then I'll come back to comments. I have 50 new comments. Woo! All right, after word work, let's talk about writing. Now, writing for me is always that independent writing. So at the end of your benchmark writing lesson, mini lesson, where you're doing it whole group, there's always going to be a manage independent writing time. They would work on that during their center. You can do this with the graphic organizers that are found on the benchmark website. You can do it with, some teachers just use like a composition notebook, loose leaf paper in one of these. You can do that however you feel is best. I did these starting like towards the middle of last year, I think, where I made these booklets. They follow the same format every week because in benchmark, the writing is always day 1, analyze the prompt, day 2, find text evidence, day 3, plan, day 4, draft, day 5, revise and edit. This is for 2 through 6. In K1, you're writing every day a new task. You're writing about the text. So whatever you just did in your shared read, doing your shared writing, you're gonna, like say you found key details during your shared read, for your shared writing, you're gonna write a key detail. That's it. And so the K1 booklets look a little different, but for 2 through 6 follows this format. So I would just use this to analyze the prompt whole class, and then, oh, this one didn't print right. Then day 2 is text evidence, day 3 is draft, and then day 4 is like that revise and edit. They would take this with them to their center. Now, with this, say my kids had writing center on day 1. What they were doing was they were finding text evidence, because day 1 we analyzed the prompt together. So they're getting a little head start with finding text evidence. Day 2, maybe they are finding more text evidence, or they're even starting their planning. So it's kind of just like wherever you're at in the writing for that week, when you visit your center, you kind of continue with it. A lot of my kids became really independent with this writing piece, with this writing component of benchmark. So I would say, okay, just in your centers this week, you're responsible for getting your draft done, and then we'd revisit on Friday. So otherwise, you can have them do write a letter to a friend, any of the daily 5 little tasks that you see in the Work on Writing Center. Write a journal entry, write a letter to your teacher, whatever. You could, like someone else asked, you could put some of these in the Writing Center, even though it's a response to text, because it is still writing practice. But for me, my goal for the Writing Center was to work on the benchmark writing, that independent writing piece. So write a book recommendation. Oh, and this guy. This I love. Sometimes I would do this as a whole class thing, or I would do as a teamwork thing. The Build, Reflect, Write page. This is something that you can put in your writing center as well if you're 2 through 6. Build, reflect, write. Okay. Do you introduce each independent activity as a whole class activity and then have reference charts for independent work? Kinda, yeah. So like the response to reading strips, these were introduced in your review and routines days. The lift a line, that's introduced in your review and routines days. These I would do whole class every week. Same with these. So it kind of just depends on you. Can you please show what you drew? Oh, I hope maybe it was, I'm taking notes. Anything that I'm taking notes on right now, I will post afterwards in the unit. I know I'm behind with comments, sorry. Okay. All right. Does the Writing Center have to correlate with Benchmark? The way that Benchmark has it, yes. Like there is always that, what is it in your TRS? That manage independent writing or something like that. And so that's what they're supposed to be doing in the writer's workshop time, the center time. But a lot of people do other fun stuff also. And then there's the tech center in my classroom. This is not going to be the same for everybody, obviously. We do have a laptop cart that we share with the other third grade, amongst third grade. So I would, on Monday, pick up 7 of them, 6 or 7, and I would set those out. And then what my students would do during that time is log into their Benchmark universe, and they would listen to their leveled reader read aloud to them. So at the start of the unit, when I'm structuring my unit in my small groups, I assign each student one of the small books, the leveled readers, that they will be reading with me. So when they're in their text center, they're listening to that text. And then when they're with me, we're digging into that text. That was a suggestion that came up in this group a while back, and I was like, oh, that's genius. Because the Benchmark website will read anything to them. Prior to that, before I was turned on to that idea, I was having the students go on and listen to their unit text, and I said that they could go to basically any text they wanted, because some kids were always like, well, can I jump ahead to unit 8? Can I do this? Can I do that? Sure, if it interests you, go for it. It's being read aloud to them. So there's not that barrier there. So tech center, I would have them listen to their leveled reader. And how do you assign leveled readers to them online? I have a Toluca's tip video that I posted a few weeks back on how to assign things. I'll link it in our unit. So listen to the leveled readers or weak text. We also got a Brain Pop subscription, although I wasn't as good as bringing that in as my partner teacher was. There's typing that they can do. What else? There's Seesaw. A lot of teachers like to do Seesaw, that online student portfolio. Newsella, ReadWorks. Ow. Okay, let's see. Tracy says, of my 22 kiddos, only about 5 can read and write independently enough to do center rotations. Do you have rotation recommendations for kids who are not yet independent? Last week, I introduced word work options that they could handle. I'll think on that, and if anyone has suggestions for Tracy. Tracy, you teach 2nd. Read to Partner Center. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Do they time their partners? So that is a daily 5 thing. Read to self or read with a partner. Read buddy reading. I don't have them do buddy reading because my groups are collaborative anyway. They're working together on everything anyway. So at my Read to Self Center, I guess it could be renamed to like Reading with My Team Center. They're working on this and they're just reading this either independently or they can kind of read with a partner. But I don't have them time each other or critique each other or anything like that. Hi Terry, starting centers on Tuesday. Woohoo! I made a Google Forms that were familiar to the weekly assessments and hit the skills in those assessments. Students loved it. It was time consuming. Yeah, Sarah, so that's another thing that I started making. I have them right here. I'm sure you guys have seen it because I posted about it this week. I started making close reading companions. So in Benchmark, in your reading lesson, there's going to be a close reading task or a purpose for reading. Sometimes that's find key details that show this, or sometimes it's determine what the author meant when they said this, or whatever. Whatever your close reading lesson is, there's usually a graphic organizer that goes with it. It's on the Benchmark website under the weekly presentations tab. There's like, there are always tables. So students can fill those in. They're really small, there's no lines. That's why I started making my own. But they are there for you if you want to use those. I created it so that it has what your purpose is for your close reading, and then it's got some sort of area where the students are responding. Now, last year I tried these with my 3rd graders. I started making them when I got to Unit 7. And I would have them start annotating in their text whole group and maybe do like 1 or 2 of these. And then if my mini lesson time was up, 15, 20 minutes have gone by, then I would say, work on this in your Read to Self Center. So I guess I can add that to the list. This is another thing that they could do because at their Read to Self Center, they have this with them, right? So they can respond that way. Another reason why I made these is because I needed something, like Sarah was saying, I needed something to show what this would look like on an assessment. So if your skill, let's see, let me pull up key details one. That one comes up all the time. If your skill is find key details and main idea and you've just found those details and you've come up with your own main idea for the text, well, what does that actually look like when Benchmark is testing you, or even when the SBAC is testing you in some cases? So I wrote a question that's modeled off of that text. Same skill, right? So what is the main idea of this passage? Which part B, which sentence from the passage supports the main idea? So it's one of those part A, part B questions that are on all the tests. So super time consuming, but worth it. I would have my kids in their center. They could attempt these, but I would always make time on Friday to go over these with the kids, or even at the end of the lesson if I had time, I would do it, because this is really like the teaching tool part. This is where you want to show them how to transfer that reading strategy to the assessment. These are my close reading companions, and I'm only making them for grades 2 through 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have Unit 1 and Unit 2 available. And so that was another thing. Close reading companions. And those worked out really well. Like I said, I started them last year. I didn't start them for other grade levels, and I didn't make them available until this year on my TPT, but and I have a video of me teaching with one of these last year, so I should post that also. I do caution you though, anyone who's new to Benchmark, master your mini lesson first, because as soon as you put in some sort of student response sheet, it's gonna definitely make your lesson longer because you have to have students writing. Oh, freckle. Okay, that's another thing for the tech center. I've heard that. Brain pop. I'm gonna write all these down. Like just typing.com either. or also, what is it? ReadWorks. There's another one. Okay. You could even do mystery science if it connects to your theme. Google Classroom. Yeah, us too, Terry. We have Google Classroom. So, oh, that's another thing I would do is anytime we were researching, like once you get to Unit 3, the writing starts to look a little bit different because it's a research unit. So anytime your students are researching for their writing and benchmark, that's a great tech center activity, right? And now Google Classroom, if you set up Google Classroom, you can put links to different research URLs that you want, that you've like previewed, that you want your students to visit. In Google Classroom, I would also link the benchmark website. We had our Go Math Think Central website linked. Any sort of like website you want them to visit, just link it there. It's really awesome. Push assignments out to them there. Anytime my students were working on a Google Slides project, they would work on it there. Andrea, quick question. Level text is too high for them. Can you borrow the level text from the lower grades? Yes. I teach third, and I picked from first, second, my own grade level, and up to fourth. That's cute. So have those 5 kids be center experts, even give them badges, and if the others don't know what to do, those are the first students to ask. This may promote others to try to read to be the center experts. That's cute. My leaders, I would write their name on that big poster that I blew up. So the leader for each team had their name written on there. And then sometimes I'd have backup leaders because I did run into this problem this year where one of my leaders was always absent, like sick so much. So I always had to have backup leaders. Oh, coding, that's cool. Bebot to code, matching vocabulary words with definitions or reading high frequency words. I also see people talk about Spelling City a lot. I think that's a subscription. I've never used it, but it's raved about. Spelling City. Terry, I'm so excited about using these this year. The test will not be as shocking for them. Exactly. The Codes Reading Companions with the test question. And I write all these myself. And so, and I'm just a third grade teacher. So if you're ever reading a question, this happened last year when I was trying these. My partner teacher, who loves me, she's allowed to say these things to me. She got to one, she was like, "That's a horrible question." I was like, okay. So if something's ever not clear or it's a horrible question, just let me know and I'll fix it. Hey, Ash. On TPTM markers and minions. Sorry. Wonderopolis. That sounds cool. I don't know what that is, but I think that goes in our tech center. Wonderopolis. Flipgrid. Yeah, there was a teacher in here this last year, and he used Flipgrid for all of his lessons. I've used free parts of Spelling City. Cool. Spelling City is free. Oh, good. Okay. There we go. Okay. Let me just make sure I hit on everything I wanted to touch on. Oh, the benchmark structure where, like I said, it's you teach a mini lesson and then you break off into small groups, mini lessons, small groups. A while back, I found infographics for each grade level that Benchmark put out somewhere on the website, and I saved them to my Google Drive. So it shows how to structure your day. So if you want to try that, I have a link to that I'll put in the unit. It's K through, I think, 6. And it actually shows the student material. So it'll say like your read aloud first, and it shows the book, and then your shared readings, and it shows the shared reading. and then your reading mini lesson, and it shows your big book. And so it kind of breaks it up that way. So you can kind of, that's a good visual if you want to do it that way. But yeah, like I said, this last year, the way that I did it, I felt like it worked really well, and I wouldn't change a thing. If I wanted to challenge myself, maybe I would try the flip-flop, but let's see. Oh, also in the review and routines days that most of us are in or just finishing, that's where you're initially setting up your workstations and introducing them and going through all of the activities. They have the set workstations, but you don't have to do like computer workstation is one of them. But if you don't have computers or you don't want to do that, you can have it switch. You can switch it up. Like you feel free to do that. Another thing that Benchmark says that you can do in your centers is the inquiry-based projects. So there are those projects that connect to your topic, your unit theme, and they connect to social studies or science. And it says you could have them work on that in one of their independent time. I never did that because I liked to take those projects and do them whole class and completely like spend a million years on them. And I'm really into projects, but that is something that you could do. And that's everything. So let's see. Quinn one time. Can you list the writing and word work activities? I didn't get to see the middle of this. Yes, so I have them all right here in my notes. I will take a picture of this and post it afterwards. You're welcome, Cindy. Thank you, Kayla. Oh, Michelle, what about the puzzles and game station from the first 20 days? So in primary, you have this whole workstation called puzzles and games. That's your own. So if you have puzzles and games in your cabinets, that's something that you can do. It's not something that comes with Benchmark. Another unclear thing in the review and routines days is it'll say, use the suggested read aloud. There is no suggested read aloud for the review and routines days, at least not in my version of the California edition. Maybe they've started making a suggested read aloud, but there isn't one. Just use your favorite picture books. Once you get to Unit 1, then those recommended trade books start coming in the read alouds. Okay guys, so I missed a ton of comments during the middle of the video, so I'm going to end now that I've said everything that I need to say, and I'm going to go through and personally read all of those and try to respond to all of those. I'm going to be hopping into an Uber in the next 20 minutes to go out to dinner, meet my family out at dinner. So I will try to respond while I'm in the car. Thank you, everyone. And don't forget about our September challenge. Give a little more than you take. So advice, a resource, an activity, an idea. It's in our announcements. You'll see a cute little graphic I made, September challenge. Just put it in the comments there. Thanks, everybody. Bye.